G'day guys. Okay, today we're going to go over how to operate mortars. There are a couple of steps required to fulfill a mortar fire solution. They are as follows. Step 1, you need to work out the deflection. Deflection is the angle of deflection from the mortar's aiming posts that you set the mortar at. Ultimately, this is how you work out where you have to aim your mortar barrel to send shells toward the target. This can be a little tricky for people who haven't attempted to tackle this, so, don't worry, we'll get through it. From there, step 2, you need to work out the elevation you need to set the mortar barrel at. Elevation is the angle relative to the horizon at which the mortar barrel is set. This, plus how many propelling charges you use on the mortar shell, is what determines how far your payload will travel. Right. I probably just hit you with a lot of info, but I promise you it'll make sense later. Okay, so let's work on getting deflection. Write this down. I'll explain it in a minute, but just get it down on paper for now, or notepad, or whatever you want to use. Alright. Determine the mill bearing from the base of your mortar to the tip of the mortar barrel. What you're doing here is attempting to ascertain which mill bearing the mortar is on, so you know where it's facing, basically. Now determine the mill bearing from your mortar to your target. Then determine the range from your mortar to your target. You should know how to do that with your vectors. And I should mention here that the mill bearings you need to get and the range to target can be worked out with map tools, for just in case you can't actually see the target, but you know where they are on the map. Okay. Now write down target bearing minus barrel bearing plus 3,200. Now, the number you get, if it's a negative number, you have to add 6,400 to it. There may be easier ways to do this, but or proper ways to do this, but this is the way I've determined how to do it, and this is the way I'm comfortable with. This is the way I'm comfortable teaching you because I know it works. So, anyway, the number you get, if it's a negative number, you add 6,400 to it, and that's your deflection. If the number you get is positive, but it's above 6,400, you need to deduct 6,400 from it. And that's your deflection. Finally, if the number you get is positive, but it's below 6,401, you don't need to do anything. That's the deflection that you need to set your mortar barrel at. This is your deflection, the angle of deflection from the aiming posts, that your mortar barrel's set to send your shells in the right direction. Now write down push mortar left or right until aiming sight lines up with aiming posts. Then fine tune aiming sight with traverse, and you're done. Okay, now elevation. Again, just write this down. I'll explain it all in a little bit, but just get it down so that you can refer to it later. Take the range that you got from the mortar to your target and find the relevant ranges in the range table. So, for instance, if your range is 550, you want to find the elevation settings for 500 and 600 with the charge you'll use. So with the amount of propelling charges you'll use. Now, yes, don't write that bit down, I'll explain that later. Now take the elevation setting for the lower range and deduct the elevation setting for the higher range. Now take that number and divide it by 100. Now this number is always going to be the same, depending on how many propelling charges you use, and what kind of ammunition you're using. So For each propelling charge you use, it'll be different, but a certain number of propelling charges for a certain type of ammunition with a certain mortar will always be the same. For instance, I know that for the 81mm mortar with one propelling charge, will always be, this number will always be 0.31. You don't need to write that down, just remember it for later. So take the number you have, for instance 0.31, and multiply it by however many meters above the low range that you got from the range tables. For instance, if your target was 550 meters away, then you'd multiply 0.31 by 50. This is the elevation in mils that you must deduct from your low range elevation setting. So you'd look up the elevation setting for 500, and whatever it is, you deduct the number that you worked out from that elevation setting. The number you get from there is your elevation. I know it sounds complicated, but once you run through it a couple of times, it'll become second nature to you. And like I said, some of that working out won't need to be done because you'll begin to remember how many points of elevation it takes for your shell to travel 1 meter. Yeah, so now I'll demonstrate. Okay, so I've set up a mortar. There are the aiming posts down there, the two red and white posts. I've also set up some shells. I've prepped 2 of them with 1 propelling charge each. So, first thing we do is we stand back, aim our vector. Remember to hit Alt-R to get into mil bearings rather than just angle. And we want to find out the bearing that the mortar is facing. So, getting 6398 here. Now I normally write my stuff down on the map or something like that. It was 6398. So let's find a target. This one will do. Bearing is 48 mil dots and range is 555 meters. So target 48 mil dots, range 555. Ignore this crap down here. Okay, so we have all the numbers we need from our vector. What we need to do now is take the target bearing, just opening up a calculator. Target bearing is 48. You minus 6,398, which is the barrel bearing, and that's given me negative 6,350. But we've got a plus 3,200 to that, which gives me negative 3,150. Now, remember, if it's a negative number, you plus 6,400. So, plus 6,400 equals 3,250. That's our deflection. So, to set the deflection, you get in as gunner, scroll wheel to view sight unit, and here we've got some stuff that we click. These two will use deflection plus and minus. These will use elevation plus and minus. These we won't bother using. So 3,250 is what we need. If you hold shift, it'll go up in increments of 10. If you don't, it'll just go up in increments of 1. So 3,250. That's our deflection. Now what you do from this point, remember, is you push the mortar left or right until the sight unit lines up vaguely with the aiming posts. Now, because I'm basically already aiming the mortar at the target before I even started doing this, the sight unit hasn't moved that much, or hasn't moved very far away from the posts. So I don't actually need to push it left and right with these options here, or, oops, wrong one, or these options here. All I need to really do is fine tune it with the traverse option. So you go into here, sight unit, click change view, and you're actually looking down the sights now. If you hold shift, this goes quickly. If you don't hold shift, it goes slow. So you can hold shift and move over to the right until you're on the rear post. I go onto the rear post. Now you're supposed to, because this is what we have here is a parallax error, where the sights are no longer in line with each other because the mortar is off on a different angle. So what I think we're supposed to do from here is work out the difference in deflection between the two posts, that was roughly 2 deflection, and then go again further to the left. And if the closest post is on the right, then you'd go further to the right as opposed to the left. Then I traverse back onto the rear post. You traverse, I think I said this, is your left and right arrows on your keyboard. You hold shift to go quick, or you don't hold shift to go slow. Okay, so deflection is set, and it looks fairly good. It looks like I might be a little bit off, maybe a little to the left, but I'm kind of rushing here. Now, range was 555, remember? So I pick up the range tables right here from the mortar. Once I've done that, I can use my asyn track to have a look at them. And as you can see, with 0 propelling charges, your maximum range is 500. So we've got to put 1 propelling charge onto our shells. So we go to charge 1. We are using high explosive rounds. So you can use Willy Pete or illumination rounds as well, but we're using high explosives. So this is the range table we should be looking at. Now you take the low range, the low elevation setting for the low range, because remember it's 555 we're looking for here, and you minus or deduct the 600, the high range elevation setting from it. I hope this is making sense. So you take 1456 minus 1426. That's 33, right? I thought it was going to be 31. Anyway, so you divide that by 100, and you get 0.33. 0.33 in elevation is what it takes to go 1 meter between a range of 500 and 600 meters. So we want to go 55 more meters, right? So 0.33 multiplied by 55 equals 18.15. Now I always round that number up, because if not, I feel like more often than not I'm short. So we'll say 19. So what we want to do is take the elevation setting for 500, the lowest of the two ranges, and deduct 19 points from it. So 1456 minus 19 is 1437. That's our elevation. Get back into the gunner seat, back into the sight unit. Elevation up to 1437. Now, every time we make an adjustment on these buttons across the top here, we're actually only changing the sight unit. We're not actually moving the mortar. We moved the mortar when we with the deflection, when we used the traverse option with the left and right arrow keys, and now looking at the spirit level here, ignore this thing, you won't actually need it, the optic level. But this spirit level here, if you hold shift and then hold down, you've got to get that spirit level to level out. You can let go of shift to fine tune it. So that's got to be right in the middle. This has to be level. What I've just done is I've actually tilted the mortar back. So, now the elevation is set. Now the moment of truth. Pick up a shell. I'm going to fire 2. Place it into the mortar. Take a shot. Just got to click to do that. Oh gosh. Come on. Another shell in. Fire it off. There we go. That should be that target right there. Hopefully. If anything, I think I'm going to land a little bit to the left. Oh! Maybe not. That's pretty effective if you ask me. Wait for the next one to take out the survivors. As if it's needed. And we can see how many survivors we got. One dude there, but he's probably burning and bleeding. 2 dudes there, but they're probably both bleeding as well. Anyway, that's how you fire mortars. But before I go, what I'll do is actually show you how to use the map tools to hit a target. Now this is, let's say there's a target over here. They'd be obscured by trees, because there's trees all along this line here. There's trees down here as well. There's actually a target over here somewhere, but I can't actually see it. I'm not going to be bothered going over there to get it. But let's say that there's a target that you know the grid reference, or a forward observer has given you the grid reference or placed a marker on the map for you to hit. But you obviously can't see it because it's too far away or obscured somehow. Well, you can use your map tools to find the bearing and range. If you know exactly where you are, I'm in regular difficulty at the moment, so that's nice and easy for me to know where I am. You can hold H for hotel and click on where you are. This is if you have map tools in your inventory. From there, you hold J for Juliet and click on the target. See that little line just moved, right? This out here is your mill bearing. That there is 200, 300, 400, 500, 600. When you get to 10, it's 1,000. And so on and so forth. This is 6,200, 6,300, and true north is 6,400. It's not rocket science, but it does take a little bit of getting used to. So it will be a little bit less accurate if you're using this, because obviously you have to kind of guesstimate. This would be 300, 3,000, no, what would it be? 320, 40, 50, 360, no, that's 380. I'd say 385, 390, right? And I'm actually going to confirm that. That's the target down there. 385, 390 is what we're looking for. There we go. 390 degrees. That was pretty good. Now, you've got the bearing with your map tools. Without moving your map, without resetting your map tools or anything, you can click up here, this nifty little tool here. Grab that and place the corner right on your target, so that it obscures the target or the map marker or whatever. This here is 100 meters, 200 meters, 300 meters, 4, 5, 6. So that's a little bit less than 600 meters. Halfway would be 550. Half again would be 575. So let's say 580, roughly. Again, you're guesstimating. Oh, look at that, 580. Okay, so yeah, there you go. It is possible to work out the bearing and the range, even if you can't see the target. Well, I hope you've enjoyed the tutorial. I hope I've helped you out. If I have helped you out, then hit the like button for us, guys.